Hello, everybody, and welcome into today's episode of Around the Slice. Now, usually, as you know, I always have the Bills recap shows the day right after the games, whether that be on a Sunday, a Monday, a Thursday, whenever the game is. But this week, I wanted to do it a little differently. I wanted to push it back a day on purpose because I wanted to wait on a few significant injury updates from Sean McDermott and the team. So I pushed it back to Tuesday, which is today, as opposed to Monday. So those few significant injury updates aren't very encouraging, but I'll get to them right now. Wide receiver Keon Coleman has already been officially ruled out against the Kansas City Chiefs for this Sunday. We already knew that. Sean McDermott said multiple weeks, which I'm assuming is 3 to 4 weeks. Since they didn't put him on IR, it's kind of encouraging. I hope it's more 3 weeks rather than 4 or 5, but we'll have to wait and see in due time. On tight end Dalton Kincaid, he said we'll see how it goes and how he progresses this week. In my mind, personally, I'm not expecting him to play this week. Worst case, it's a PCL sprain in his knee, and that's usually a three week recovery. Excuse me, and that. But if it's just a simple bone bruise, that's only usually 1 week. So just out of precaution, I don't think he plays against the Chiefs. And then he said Amari Cooper is progressing well enough where we'll see how it goes this week. And on franchise right tackle Spencer Brown, he said we'll also see how it goes this week. So the quick rundown: Keon Coleman's not playing against the Chiefs. I don't expect tight end Dalton Kincaid to play against the Chiefs. I do expect Amari Cooper to make his return, however, and I do expect Spencer Brown to be just fine in playing because he turned his ankle, only missed like 2 plays on the scoring drive late in the game in the fourth quarter against the Colts the other day on Sunday, specifically. The whole thing on Ryan Vandermark had to come in, so he's fine. But something I was not expecting to at least 2 or 3 weeks from now, this is just so awesome. Linebacker Matt Milano's 21-day practice window has been opened. So once that is what the technicalities of that and formalities, if you will, of that, once a practice window for a player has been opened, the team has 21 days to decide whether or not to activate them to the actual roster and fill that roster spot, which I assume the Bills will do. He obviously won't play against the Chiefs this Sunday, but I would expect him, personally, I would expect him to make his debut week 13 against the 49ers. So week 11, Chiefs, week 12, bye week, excuse me, and then week 13 in a few weeks, they play the 49ers. So I would expect him to make his debut on Sunday, December 1st at 8:20 p.m. That is, of course, Sunday Night Football, so I fully expect him to be that. Anyway, the Buffalo Bills beat the Indianapolis Colts by a final score of 32-20. I came on this podcast and said, yes, I expect the Bills to win, but I expect it to be much closer until the fourth quarter than I expected. And it really, really was. Was such a weird game. And I have to get this off my chest. I love Bills fans, right? Like, I'm diehard Bills Mafia all day long, through and through. But some Bills fans are just weird, man. Like, some Bills fans are just strange. What I mean by that is they complain that the team is 8-2. This is our best start in 30 years. Over 30 years, even. They're saying, well, a good chunk of Bills Mafia and Bills fans are saying, well, it doesn't matter. The playoffs only matter. Who gives a damn about the regular season record? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, calm down. We all want the Bills to win the Super Bowl for once. Obviously. Like, no crap. Duh. That's a thing that we all want. But instead of complaining about your own team and your own team's success, how about you just enjoy the moment, enjoy the best start in over 30 years, and live in the moment and just sit back and say, my team is awesome right now. Instead of just complaining and looking ahead. Like, how do you complain about your own team's success? What? I don't get some Bills fans. It's just stupid. I don't understand it. I'm sorry. I'm not targeting anyone specifically. I'm just saying in general, I had to get that off my chest. It's stupid. Anyway, Bills beat the Colts 30-20, obviously in Indianapolis, Indiana. Indy there. One word to describe this game for the Bills. It felt off. Like, this was just a weird game. My one word is off. Like, Josh Allen was off. The offense was off. Like, the defense was off at times. Yes, they were very opportunistic, but they gave up a few chunk plays here and there. I don't think snap to snap, down and down, the defense was as consistent as I wanted them to be, but they were very opportunistic and they made big clutch plays when they had to. But the snap to snap consistency wasn't there as much as I wanted it to be. So this game felt really, really off for Josh Allen and the offense specifically and especially. Bills inactives pregame. Let's see. 2 of them were injury related. We already knew this though. Fullback Reggie Gilliam, he was questionable, but I didn't think he would play, and he did not. And then wide receiver Keon Coleman, and we absolutely know he won't play against the Chiefs again. Then the third injury related one was Amari Cooper. Wide receiver KJ Hamler was a healthy scratch. On Friday, they made Friday, a couple days before the game, specifically, they made a pretty good amount of moves at wide receiver. They signed Jalen Virgil permanently to the 53-man roster for the practice squad, and they elevated wide receivers Tyler Shavers and KJ Hamler for the practice squad. So 1, Keon wasn't playing. 2, that signaled to me that Amari Cooper definitely wasn't playing. And it was kind of weird that KJ Hamler was elevated just to be a healthy scratch, but I guess it was just a guard against Curtis Samuel, maybe if he wasn't as effective or couldn't go. And then 2 actual healthy scratches. Linebacker Eddie Ulofoshio went back to being Nicholas Morrow, the primary 4th linebacker for special teams. And then center / guard Will Clapp. He's stuck behind Cedric Van Bergen, Alec Anderson more so. So I'm fine with that though. Stock up. Now with the stock report, who really impressed me? I give running back James Cook a big stock up. He had 19 carries, 80 rushing yards, 1 touchdown. This is the part that was underwhelming to me. He only had 1 catch for 5 yards. This is a game where without Dalton Kincaid, who unfortunately got injured during the game, came back for a play or 2, couldn't go, pulled himself out, doubtful return, eventually ruled out very shortly after. So Dalton Kincaid out, Keon Coleman out, Amari Cooper out. I was really looking for a lot of targets, especially James Cook himself specifically, to get a lot of targets out of the backfield, and only 1 catch for 5 yards is underwhelming. I wanted to see 7, 8, 9, like maybe even 10, pushing 10 receptions, like double-digit targets, double-digit receptions maybe, and he didn't. So, but I really like James Cook has improved a lot of areas this year. He's put on muscle, it seems to me. He's gotten way more physical this year. He's improved his contact balance. He still has that issue sometimes where he doesn't have the best ball carrier vision in the world, and he doesn't run with conviction. It's improved a bit this year, but sometimes he still has those twinkle toes and dances around the backfield when he needs to just hit the hole and hit the gas pedal and go. But yeah. Also, running back Ty Johnson really impressed me. He had 3 catches for 32 yards, and one of those came on a clutch 3rd down where we were trying to come back in the game. We were down by 3, and then another one we were trying to ice the game. One of those came on a clutch 3rd down on a drive. So there's random players that will show up like in clutch moments, like Quentin Morris will have a random touchdown now and again. Mac Hollins is always there when you need him. Ty Johnson will have a random touchdown now and again. And they love Ty Johnson for his pass pro ability. It annoys me. It doesn't frustrate me because he's doing good with the opportunity he's gotten, but it kind of annoys me as like a Bills podcaster and fan more so that Ty Johnson gets more snaps than Ray Davis. I think that's got to be flipped. But I mean, they love him in pass pro, and they love him as like a hybrid, like pseudo jumbo tight end type. So yeah. And then wide receiver Khalil Shakir, he is just so consistent on a down basis. 3rd down, who's the ball going to? Khalil Shakir. His contact balance is elite. He never goes down in the first 1 or 2 tackle attempts. Like you got to really got to come with conviction when you try to tackle Khalil Shakir, because goddamn, that boy ain't going down in the first tackle. Like it's awesome. First stats, he had 6 catches for 58 yards. He always converts 2 or 3 big 3rd down conversions when we need him. I just love him. So yeah. And the wide receiver Mac Hollins, again, this is a bit more than a random player. Ty Johnson and Quentin Morris are truly random players. And then Mac Hollins, like I said in the beginning of the season, it annoys me how much he's playing over Keon, but Keon's not in there. So Mac Hollins has to play a whole hell of a lot more now, and he's really, really delivering. I mean, 4 catches for 86 yards. Now, I'm not saying go pick him up off the waiver wire in fantasy, because that's a huge trap in my opinion. But like for real life, he is contributing. He's tied for the most touchdowns on the season on the team with Keon Coleman with 3. Yeah, with 3, both of them, and he'll probably finish with more than Keon if Keon's going to continue to miss multiple weeks. He's a special teams ace, 4-phase special teamer. huge red zone target. He's an excellent blocker. I don't see any difference with Gabe Davis and Matt Collins. I'm not saying it's better or worse. I just think it's a neutral thing. Like, it's a lateral move, like going from Gabe Davis to Matt Collins. Like, who really cares? It's no big deal. Gabe Davis got paid $13 million a year from the Jaguars, awful contract, and Matt Collins got paid what, $5-6 million just for 1 year from the Bills. So I'm starting to warm up to Matt Collins for sure, personally, because he doesn't annoy me as much anymore for getting on the field so much. And then tight end Dawson Knox. He had 2 catches for 40 yards. I believe he only has 7 or 8 catches on the year, and 2 of those are touchdowns. But, like, he's clutch. He doesn't have nearly as many drops as he used to. Because early in his career, he had he couldn't catch anything, it felt like. He's a huge red zone target, literally and figuratively. He's Josh's most trusted weapon in the red zone, for sure, even more than Khalil Shakir and Matt Collins, I'd say. I wouldn't call him an excellent blocker, but he's a good enough blocker. Pretty good, I would say, actually. He's improved a lot. So 2 catches for 40 yards, 20 average. If Donkey is going to be out, like, I fully trust Dawson Knox because he played in this offense for a bunch of years before Donkey got here. So I'm really encouraged what I've seen from Dawson Knox coming up now and again with red zone targets. And then on the defensive side, this is really encouraging. As we know, Quentin Jefferson was here in 2020. They had him playing nose tackle because of the whole Star Latule, opted out because of COVID. Weirdest year of football ever, obviously, because of that. Really weird year in general in the world, but that's besides the point. They had Quentin Jefferson playing nose tackle, and he's not that at all. He's a 3-tech through and through. He's a penetration style gap shooter. And he came in, didn't miss a beat, and he had 1 tackle, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and 1 QB hit. I mean, he was really, really, really effective. Out of the 2 that came in and returned, I guess you could say, between Quentin Jefferson and Jordan Phillips, I much prefer Quentin Jefferson. I think he is the perfect rotational piece behind Ed Oliver, and then when Dwayne Carter comes back. And then defensive tackle Austin Johnson. He doesn't play much, but when he does play, he's really good enough. He had 1 pass deflection and 1 interception. Don't throw screens when Austin Johnson's around. I mean, he'll shoot that gap, and he'll reach his arms out and pluck your screens away from you. I mean, it's really effective. He has 2 interceptions in the season now, and 1 was a tip pass that fell in his arms against the Seahawks, I think. Okay, for first career interception. And then 1 was this past week, 2 days ago in Indy over there, where it was a screen pass and he just plucked it from the side of the guy. So, yeah. And then defensive end, Greg Rousseau. I've said all the pass rushers, whether it's been Von Miller, AJ Epineza, Devon Smith's on IR now, Javon Salmon doesn't get nearly enough playing time. I don't know why Casey Tuho plays over him so much. Greg Rousseau has been the only really consistent and even close to dominant one. He had 4 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 1 QB hit, 1 forced fumble. I'm still nervous that he's going to get a tad overpaid by the Bills, but I'm warming up to the idea of, like, give him a big market, well, not market setting, but like market value contract, and let's roll with him going forward. And then defensive end AJ Epineza, I thought this was one of his best games of the season. 3 tackles, 1 sack, 1 TFL, 1 QB hit. The 4 sacks didn't really come till the 4th quarter, I believe. And that can't happen. Like, from a down-and-down basis, I thought the pass rush was very inconsistent and very underwhelming and disappointing. It's got to be way more consistent on a down-and-down basis. They can't be waiting until the 3rd and 4th quarter in clutch moments to get sacks. Yes, they get clutch sacks, but, like, it's got to be way more consistent. And then linebacker Dorian Williams, 9 tackles and 1 tackle loss. He's a great gap shooter. He's a phenomenal tackler. Plays with his hair on fire. He misses a few more tackles than I want him to. Just like Tremaine Edmonds did, because he's flying around. He's a north to south style, hair on fire style player. He's still liability in coverage, though, unfortunately. And speaking of linebackers, this is a really weird situation. Don't ask me why Seattle's doing this, but the Seahawks yesterday announced that they released linebacker Tyrell Dotson. He started all 9 games for him this season, 71 tackles. Now, yes, he has to go through waivers and all that, and the Bills are 30th in waiver priority, and they have an open roster spot, so people want Brandon Beane to bring back, like, Tyrell Dotson immediately and blah, blah, blah. I personally don't. I guess it's fine if you do, but I personally don't. Because I think the combination of Joe Andreessen, Eddie Lafojo, and Nicholas Moore as a veteran in this league is fine for special teams purposes. And Tyrell Dotson can't cover to save his life. How many linebackers do we need that can't cover? Terrell Bernard, excellent coverage linebacker. Matt Milano's out, excellent coverage linebacker. But Dorian Williams, liability in coverage. Waylon Spector was a liability in coverage. And Tyrell Dotson's even more of a liability in coverage. So I don't want to bring him back. I'm not nearly honestly, I'm not high on that at all, that idea. But linebacker Terrell Bernard, 9 tackles and 1 pass deflection. He nearly had an interception. We had 3 interceptions off of Joe Flacco. 1, Taron Johnson was a pick 6. 2, Austin Johnson picked off a screen pass. And 3, Taylor Rapp when it bounced off Alec Pierce's hands, but it was a really severely high throw by Joe Flacco, so I don't blame Alec Pierce. I mean, he had to climb the hell up the ladder for that one. We really could have had 5 picks because Taron Johnson dropped what would have been a second pick of the game, and Terrell Bernard dropped a wide open pick. It would have been another pick 6 for Taron Johnson, then Terrell Bernard dropped one, like I just said. So, but Terrell Bernard was nowhere near 100%. You could tell last week against the Dolphins. So, I still don't think he's 100%, but against the Dolphins, I think he was like 65, 70%. I think this week he was like 85, 90%. And by next week, I think he'll be just fine. Secondary players, corner Christian Benford. 5 tackles and 1 tackle for loss. You're never going to see him get a ton of interceptions on the year because he's never tested. Like, teams know not to throw at him. Like, he's such a lockdown, shutdown corner. You know when you're a lockdown, shutdown corner when you don't even get tested, when you don't even get targeted. No one even tests him. Like, he can't get his hands on the ball in interceptions if the ball isn't thrown his way in coverage. So, he's awesome. He's all-pro this year. Speaking of all-pro this year, corner Taron Johnson. He absolutely lit up the box score. 3 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 2 pass deflections, 1 QB hit, 1 interception, and 1 pick 6. That 1 interception was a pick 6. He read Joe Flacco like a book. He also could have had a second pick 6, but he dropped that. Taron Johnson, I'm saying it right now, is the best slot corner in the league. There's no debate. You could say Trent McDuffie, but he's playing of the Chiefs, but he's playing a lot more outside corner this year than he ever has before. Mike Hilton's fallen off pretty severely with the Bengals. Desmond King isn't even on a team right now. Devon Witherspoon's having a pretty terrible year with the Seahawks in his sophomore slump for sure. So give me Taron Johnson. He better be first team all-pro slot corner. I'm going to lose my mind. Next, safety Taylor Rapp. 7 tackles, 1 pass deflection, 1 interception, The interception kind of fell into his hands. I love Taylor Rapp as a I wouldn't say I love him, but I really like Taylor Rapp as a downfield hammer, and his coverage ability has improved a lot this year. He's a lot better in coverage in this year than I ever thought he would ever be, so that's really encouraging. And then safety Damar Hamlin, 4 tackles, 1 fumble recovery. People say, well, his big splash plays don't really matter because the 2 interceptions he got were in garbage time of 2 games. And the fumble recovery he got was just, it happened to bounce to him. Guys, he's always around the ball. It's not his fault that 2 interceptions fall into his hands and the fumble recovery falls into his hands in the ground. He's around the ball. He gets credit for it. Let's move on. Dumb argument. So, yeah. And then safety Cam Lewis, he had only 5 tackles, but God, this guy, he made a couple phenomenal, and I mean phenomenal hard-hitting special teams tackles. He can play slot corner. I think he's best suited at safety at this point. He can play outside corner, so he's a great third safety behind Taylor Rapp and Damar Hamlin. He's the perfect direct backup to Taron Johnson. He can play outside corner. He had a 90 overall PFF grade. He had 90 coverage grade and then 80 tackling grade. I don't know. I just love Cam Lewis as a nice versatile chess piece for this defense. And if he keeps signing 1-year deals in Buffalo like he has for the longest time, he's going to be – I just really, really love Cam Lewis. Kicker, Tyler Bass, 3 of 3 on field goals, 3 of 3 on extra points. And that third extra point was impressive because after the unnecessary roughness penalty, which was the weakest freaking call I have ever seen in the world, Josh Allen ran for a rushing touchdown, then Nick Cross pulled him down by a horse collar, which they didn't call, and Spencer Brown took exception to that, and he went over and got in Colts safety Nick Cross's face. And they called a flag for 15 yards of unnecessary roughness, which is just freaking ridiculous. All he did was get in his face. He didn't shove him. He didn't even touch him. He didn't even poke him. He barely breathed on him, and they say, oh, you got his face? Flag. Meanwhile, They're punching Josh Allen in the head. They're ramming him in the back of the head. They're taking him down by a horse collar. These refs were horrific. Every Bills game, the refs are horrific. So, good on Tyler Bass making a 48-yard extra point. Punter Sam Martin, he's been fine this year. He's been good. He's been average to maybe good at some points. More average than not, but I think he had a phenomenal game. All his punts were phenomenal, in my opinion. He pinned him deep in the Colts' own territory. He was just I feel like every punt was within the 20-yard line on the 2-3 punts he had. So that was awesome. Mixed. I'm gonna go with the run defense was mixed. Unfortunately, Jonathan Taylor was tearing us up in the first half, but tail of the tape here, Jonathan Taylor had 114 total rushing yards in the day against us. The Bills against us, but 107 of those 114 rushing yards came in the first half. So 107 rushing yards in the first half and only 7. Yes, when did you say 7 rushing yards in the second half? We shut them down in the second half and made them into a drop back passing offense, which Joe Flacco doesn't want to do. Stock down. I'm sorry, but I'm going to give Josh Allen. He was very off. 22 of 37, 59% completion percentage. He missed Dalton Kincaid wide open for a touchdown, and I mean wide open. Him and Dalton just haven't been on the same page this year nearly enough. I don't know what it is. They've had many miscommunications, many wrong routes run by Dalton Kincaid. When he is wide open, Josh does that. He has 12 uncatchable targets now in the season from Josh Allen. That's the most of any tight end in the NFL. Got to clean that up. 280 passing yards, 2 interceptions, 8 rushes, 50 rushing yards in a rushing touchdown and 1 interception. No, wait, wrong. 2 interceptions, 8 rushes, 50 rushing yards, and 1 rushing touchdown. The 2 interceptions were totally his fault. The first one, I don't know what he was doing. 1, he threw it way too quick, and he seemed really, really nervous and confused. And the second one was to Curtis Samuel. It's just Curtis Samuel had 8 targets today, only caught 4 of them. The second interception was 100% on Josh Allen, but ideally, you would like your receiver, Curtis Samuel, I'm talking to you. You would like your receiver to have some conviction and attack the ball as opposed to falling backwards and waiting for the ball to come to you. Like, attack the ball at the catch point and, try at least to go and get it, or at least play defense on that. But still. And then wide receiver Curtis Samuel, I literally just mentioned him. 4 catches for 35 yards. I don't even know what we're doing it with anymore. I just don't. Like, I've just given up so long ago. I said this is the game for Curtis Samuel with no Amari Cooper and no Keon Coleman, and he was nothing. The only wide receivers that did anything were Khalil Shakir and Matt Collins. That's it. I was kind of hyped for Jalen Virgil, permanently signed a 53-man roster off the practice squad, but he only played 5% of snaps, used in certain blocking schemes. Honestly, if Curtis Samuel wasn't out there and Jalen Virgil was more, I wouldn't notice a difference. It's sad to say. And then kick return and punt return of Brandon Codrington, I thought you had an awful day in terms of decision making. When we got the first half kickoff, it was halfway back in the end zone, and he took it out, and he got dropped down at the 22-yard line. He sacrificed 8 yards of field position. You say, well, that's not much. Well, with the new touchback rules, you get it at the your own 30-yard line, and that's very good field position to start out for a touchback. You only return it if you're right on the edge of the end zone. Don't return it when you're halfway back in the end zone like Brandon Codrington was. And then later in the game in the third quarter, Bills luckily recovered it. Thank God for Alec Anderson down there moving like a tight end as an offensive lineman. But sheesh, Brandon Codrington, he fumbled it. Horrible day in terms of decision making. So I don't know what he was doing. And then the offensive line penalties really bother me. I love Spencer Brown, and especially I expect perfect things from Deion Dawkins, but he's had a lot more penalties than any years past, probably combined. He's had a lot more penalties than I want him to. He's got to get that cleaned up. He has a lot more false starts / holds, that illegal formations that I want him to. Just ticky-tack penalties that shouldn't be anywhere close to what they are for an all-pro guy like Deion Dawkins at left tackle. Big slice of the game award. I thought cornerback Taron Johnson really stood out. Obviously, he had that 1 pick six. He could have a second pick six, but he dropped it. But he's so good. So good. Our middle of the field coverage, as great as it is with Terrell Bernard and then Taron Johnson, even when we take out Dorian Williams and obvious pass downs like 3rd and long, which credit to the Bills, they do that because they're going to say hey, Dorian's going to get picked on here. Like, let's buzz down Taron Johnson, Jamarcus Ingram, Cam Lewis, Taylor Rapp, his downfield hammers, his disguised blitzes, disguised coverage, delayed blitzes, whatever term you want to use, they do it. So our middle of the field coverages are already awesome with Taron Johnson, Terrell Bernard, buzzing down those safeties / corners as pseudo hybrid linebacker types. But imagine when Matt Milano comes back and you won't need to do that anymore. Big slice of game more, Taron Johnson. Burnt slice of the game more. There weren't as many obvious candidates, but I did settle on Josh Allen, unfortunately. Like I said, he was nervous. He was confused. He was off. I don't know what he's looking at out there, literally and figuratively. He just felt off the entire day. Reflecting on 5-game predictions from my Friday preview show, I said, give me Josh Allen over 237.5 passing yards. He absolutely crushed that. He got to 280. He could have been well over 300 if he hit Dalton Kincaid on that easy streak down the sideline, which Kincaid got injured in that. And he was wide open. He severely overthrew him. People say, whoa, it went off. Dalton Kincaid got his fingers on it. You know the rule. If you catch it, you can. If you touch it, you can catch it. Okay, it went right through his fingers. It was really overthrown. It's an uncatchable target, guys. So that happened. James Cook over 2.5 receptions. That didn't happen, so we're 1 and 2 in my predictions. I was really discouraged by this. I really wanted to see a lot of receptions more for James Cook, but does that make sense? A lot more receptions. There we go for James Cook. Joe Flacco under 235.5 passing yards. This didn't happen. He had what? 278, I think. I think around there. 270, I think, right on the nose. I don't know. Like I said, the defense was opportunistic with clutch interceptions, clutch forced fumble, clutch fumble recovery by DeMar Hamlin. But on a down-and-down basis, the down-and-down consistency and the snap-to-snap consistency just wasn't there. They were very opportunistic, but like I said, I would like to see them tighten up on a down-and-down basis. So that didn't happen. We're 1 of 3. Jonathan Taylor over 78.5 rushing yards. If they held him in the first half to even half of what he had in the first half, he wouldn't even come close to this. But since he had 107 rushing yards in the first half and only 7 in the second half, he got well over this. So this happened. It's a running back against the Bills. What do you expect? And then Bills defense gets 2 interceptions off of Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco's lucky we didn't have 5 interceptions. This happened. So we go 1, 2, 3. 3 for 5 on predictions this week. Quick math, that's 60%. I'm really looking forward to looking back at all these after the season. And then I predicted the Bills would win the game 30-14. And by the way, I did say Friday, listen, guys, this will be a close game. Way closer. Well, maybe not way, but at the very least, minimum, closer than expected until the very end fourth quarter. And it was a 3-point game. We've been trailing by 3 going into the fourth quarter. I believe, if I can recall and remember correctly about that specifically. But I would say we would win 30-14. I don't care how we win. We won 30-20. Honestly, I was only 6 points off, so whatever. And then final thoughts, questions about certain position groups. I hate to say it, but we're better. I feel like this offense is just so much better and cleaner without Curtis Samuel on the field. He played 89% of snaps. 89% of snaps. Total empty snaps, total nothing of snaps. We could have put Jalen Virgil out there and honestly have an experiment with some jet sweeps with him, and it would have been fine. I just beyond awful contract. And then not trading for a pass rusher at the deadline still really frustrates me and annoys me. Even with the ones who I wanted to upgrade with him, go get Zadarius Smith from the Browns. They could have gotten Baron Browning for the Broncos. Those guys were so severely cheap, but they didn't. Instead, they brought back Jordan Phillips and Quentin Jefferson. Fine, that's the interior, whatever. But I really wanted a pass rusher because everyone but Greg Rousseau has been really disappointing to some extent. Give or take and what have you there. So that really frustrates me still. My 2 biggest takeaways from my offensive snap counts, I always like to look at this. Curtis Samuel by far plays highest amount of snaps during the season. For what? Total empty, total nothing burger, 89% for what? And then the RB snap counts, fascinating. I mean, really interesting to me. James Cook, 55% of snaps. Ty Johnson, 30% snaps. That's a really decent amount for him. Ray Davis, 15% of snaps. This is how I would divvy it up, if you will. I would give James Cook 70% of snaps. Ray Davis, 25% of snaps. And then Ty Johnson, 5% of snaps. That's just personally how I would do things if I were Sean McDermott and Joe Brady personally, but obviously I'm not. So I don't have any say. But if I was offensive coordinator, that's how I would do it. So those are my only two. And then my two takeaways from defense snap counts. Nothing was abnormal here. I really liked how they utilized Cam Lewis though on special teams and on defense on some nickel and dime certain packages and buzzing them down at pseudo hybrid linebacker. Anyways, guys, that's all for today. This was a really encouraging game. The offense was off as expected. Ton of injuries. No Keon Coleman. No Amari Cooper. Only one half of Dalton Kincaid, if that. Playing hobbled pretty much almost that whole half. So yeah. Anyways, guys, you can watch let me backtrack. You can of course follow me on Twitter personally at awagoner13. You can follow and support the show on Twitter at Around Slice. You can, of course, watch or listen to this podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts, wherever you pod. We're happily on that platform. And lastly, most importantly, please help me get to 50 subscribers. We're on the road to 50 by the end of this season. Let's hope the end of the season is in February, if you know what I mean, holding that Lombardi up. Nice and shiny Lombardi, but let's get there. Anyways, guys, thank you. I will be back in a few days on Friday. Let's see. Friday, November 15th, in 3 days from now. So I'll be back on Friday, November 15th for the highly anticipated Bills Chiefs preview show. See you then. Thank you for supporting as always. Have a great day. Bye.